Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere hot, bright, and just a little bit radioactive. Picture this. You're waking up in the middle of the Nevada desert. The sun hasn't quite crested the horizon yet, but the air already hums with tension and dust. You're surrounded by other young men in khaki uniforms, some still half asleep, others lighting cigarettes with trembling hands. No birds chirp out here, no civilians in sight. Just sand, sagebrush, and a quiet that feels staged. There's an unease in your gut, but you can't tell if it's fear or just bad powdered eggs from breakfast. Someone says today's the day. You already know it in your bones. After weeks of marching drills and cryptic briefings, you're about to witness a nuclear test. Not from a safe distance, not behind glass or in a bunker. You're in a trench a few miles from ground zero. You're not a scientist. You're not a general. You're a pawn in a surreal military play where the stakes are sky high and nobody's handing out scripts. Your only instructions? Get low, cover your eyes, and try not to die. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from anywhere strange or beautiful, or both, drop your city and local time in the comments. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The sand is still cool beneath your boots, but the heat will come. It always does out here. The Nevada test site, nicknamed the Proving Grounds, stretches for over 1,000 square miles, like a forbidden kingdom of blast craters and tumbleweed. Somewhere far off, a siren echoes once, then silence. You're in your assigned trench, a narrow slot dug hastily into the desert floor, reinforced with planks and a prayer. Your buddy beside you tries a joke. Something about sunscreen. You both laugh, but it's not funny. You glance up. The sky is still pinkish black, streaked with early dawn. You know it won't stay that color for long. That mushroom cloud, the one you've seen in newsreels and training films, is about to become your very real, very loud neighbor. And here's the kicker. You're not sure if you're more scared of the bomb or your own government. Back at base, the officers speak in clipped tones. Codenames and jargon fly fast. Operation Upshot Knothole, Shot Annie, Shot Simon. Each test is another explosion, another data point, another opportunity for scientists in lab coats to scribble notes behind reinforced glass while you feel the earth shudder under your ribs. This isn't Hiroshima. It's not even a foreign battlefield. This is home turf. The U.S. military is dropping live nuclear weapons on its own soil, its own people. And you're the control group with a pulse. Historians still argue whether the military brass fully understood the biological effects of radiation at this stage. The truth is fuzzier than a fallout cloud. What's clear is that you're not here for safety. You're here to see how a soldier holds up under nuclear warfare, how fear, dust, and gamma rays collide in the human body. You spot cameras on a nearby ridge, not just military, newsreels. Today's blast will be one of the first televised nuclear detonations in history. America's living room is about to get a front-row seat to your existential crisis. A truck rumbles past, spraying something, maybe water, maybe anti-radiation foam. Who knows? You ask someone what time the shot is scheduled. 0700, he mutters, not looking up. So you wait, and wait. And when the voice crackles over the loudspeaker, 5 minutes to detonation, your stomach flips like a bad radio signal. You hunker low, pull your helmet down, and prepare to meet a man-made sun. You've heard what's supposed to happen. An intense flash of light, a roar like the sky tearing in half, and then the shockwave. You're supposed to keep your eyes shut tight and your mouth open to equalize pressure, they say. Because nothing says good morning like having your eardrums blown out by science. 3 minutes, somewhere behind you. A chaplain mutters a prayer. Someone else pukes into the sand. You grip your rifle like it's going to help. Spoiler, it won't. 1 minute. It's oddly calm. Too calm. Like the desert itself is holding its breath. 30 seconds. You whisper something to yourself. Maybe a name. Maybe a curse. 10 seconds. Your heart thunders so hard it might be picked up on seismic monitors. 3, 2, 1, and then, flash. The world goes white. Not just bright. Pure. You've never seen light this absolute. It pours through your eyelids, into your brain, your soul. For a half second, you're nowhere. Or everywhere. It's hard to tell. Then comes the sound. Late. Like a rude guest. A roar, a snap, a thunderclap layered over itself again and again until your bones vibrate. Dust shoots skyward. Your trench shudders. The earth moans. You peek, just a little. And there it is. The mushroom cloud. Enormous. Silent now. Rising into the stratosphere like a titan's curse. The stem glows with oranges and reds. The top unfurls into a monstrous cauliflower head. It's beautiful. It's terrifying. It's oddly elegant. You almost forget to breathe. And then you cough. The dust. It's already drifting down. Fine. Pale. Sticky. You try not to think about what it's made of. Behind you, someone cheers. A general claps. A journalist scribbles something. Wide-eyed. This is a good day, apparently. A successful test. You remain crouched in the trench, still shaking. And you start to wonder, if this was just the beginning, what comes next? You stay low in the trench longer than necessary. Even after the shouting fades and the sky loses its fire, your ears still ring. Your fingertips tingle. The blast is over, but it lingers in the bones like thunder after lightning. Someone above you laughs, too loud. Someone else mutters something about doing it again. You think, they can't mean that literally. But they do. Operation Upshot Knothole isn't one explosion. It's a series, 11 nuclear detonations over the course of a few months in 1953, each with its own code name, its own audience, its own strange rationale. You're here for just one of them, and that's bad enough. The official line is training, exposing ground troops to a nuclear battlefield, to familiarize personnel with atomic warfare conditions. Unofficially, it's more like a haunted science fair with live explosives and zero safety net. Today's test is called Shot Grable, named after the artillery gun that fired the bomb. It's a 280mm shell. Yes, a nuclear artillery shell. They've weaponized something the size of a kitchen stove and launched it from a cannon. Scientists and generals call it a breakthrough. You call it what it is. Madness in khaki. You're ordered out of the trench. Your boots crunch over sand that's now radioactive in places you can't see. The officers are chipper. "How was it, boys?" one yells. "Bright enough for you?" There's always someone who thinks nuclear warfare is just fireworks with paperwork. You glance back at the trench, a long scar in the earth. You think of how many boots have been here before yours, how many after. You wonder what their stories were, if they also had no idea what exactly they were being exposed to. Historians still argue whether the military's goal here was scientific or psychological. Some say they wanted to study stress responses. Others insist it was a propaganda effort, proving to the Soviets and to Congress that America had brave soldiers ready to fight in a radioactive battlefield. The truth? Probably both. You're beginning to understand how easy it is for governments to fold ethics into strategy like bad poker hands. Now, the debrief. Officers gather you and your unit in a tent, flapping slightly in the desert wind. The atmosphere is weirdly casual. One guy still has dust on his teeth. Another's face is sunburnt on one side. You sit on a wooden bench, trying not to think about your skin, your lungs, Your blood. The commander walks in with a pointer and a chalkboard diagram of the explosion. There's no mention of radiation, no iodine tablets, no discussion of long-term risks. Instead, he highlights lessons learned, as if the whole thing were a slightly edgy fire drill. You raise your hand, nervous but curious. "Sir, how dangerous was that radiation?" The officer pauses, then smiles like a car salesman. "Son, we're all fine. The amount you were exposed to is less than a chest X-ray. You'll be back to training in the morning." You don't feel reassured, especially since your skin still feels like it's being microwaved. The tent empties. You wander toward the ridge, where you can see the mushroom cloud's tail still feathering into the upper atmosphere. In the distance, trucks carry scorched tanks and mannequins back from Ground Zero for analysis. You hear someone joke about how the mannequins had better posture than the actual soldiers. You don't laugh this time. That night, in your bunk, you dream of white light and silence, not fire and noise, just an endless blankness swallowing everything. You wake up sweating, but no one else seems concerned. They're too busy placing bets on whether tomorrow's test will be louder. Back in real life, today's test is all over the news. Americans across the country tune into grainy television broadcasts, showing the cloud blooming in monochrome splendor. Commentators speak solemnly, but not with fear. There's awe, maybe even pride. After all, this is the atomic age. Progress is measured in kilotons now. You don't see yourself on screen. Of course, just the bomb. You wonder if your parents know you were there, if they'd worry or just think it was necessary. The next morning, you're issued a fresh uniform, as if the radioactive dust didn't cling to the threads of the last one. Breakfast is powdered eggs again. You're beginning to think the real experiment is how much powdered food a human can consume before emotional collapse. You overhear a corporal bragging that he kept a rock from Ground Zero as a souvenir. It glowed faintly at night, he claims. Someone else jokes that his kids will have 3 arms. No one tells him to throw it out. In a brief moment of boredom, you sneak a look at one of the pamphlets left in a mess tent, a glossy handout titled "Surviving the Bomb," with cheerful diagrams of duck and cover techniques. One shows a stick figure hiding behind a picket fence from an atomic blast. You almost choke on your instant coffee. You're starting to understand the game now. This isn't about safety. It's about image, training, reassurance. If soldiers can take it, the message says, so can the public. Never mind the fallout, never mind the long-term consequences. That's someone else's department. You remember that moment in the trench. Eyes closed, world flashing white. Every muscle in your body clenched like a fist. You didn't feel brave. You felt small, fragile, human. But you also remember the quiet that followed. That surreal calm. The odd beauty of the cloud rising against the pale sky. And you wonder, is that how it all starts? Not with fear, but with fascination? The testing schedule continues. More shots, more clouds. The same ritual over and over. Wake, trench, flash, silence, laugh, repeat. You try to tell yourself you're lucky, that you lived, that you've seen something most people never will. But in the quiet moments, you feel it crawling in your chest. The knowledge that something invisible may already be inside you, ticking away like a second bomb. And you wonder, again, if they ever really planned to tell you the truth. You're told the test went off perfectly. That's the official word. The after-action report is neat, clinical, all numbers and graphs, but you know what you felt. You remember the thud that shook the ground, the light that burned behind your eyes, and the weird metallic taste in your mouth that still hasn't gone away. But according to the brass, you're doing fine, maybe even heroic. So when the next test comes, you're ready, or at least, you think you are. It's early morning again, and you're back in the trench with the same guys. Someone passes around gum, another guy's humming. You're all trying to look relaxed. But every single one of you is watching the horizon, waiting for the sky to go wrong again. This time, you know when it's coming. You crouch, brace, and this time you don't peek. You think, play it safe. You're not here to be a hero? The explosion comes. Same thunderous roar, same blinding flash, same breathless silence that follows. But this time, it hits different. Maybe it's the direction of the wind. Maybe it's the bomb yield. Maybe it's the fact that you're already a little more frayed than before. But when the shockwave slams into your trench, the boards crack, sand blasts into your mouth, your helmet rattles, and you realize you might not survive the next one. Your nose bleeds. No one else says anything about it. They just glance at you and look away. You see someone else with a burn on his neck. Another guy's eyebrows are gone. It's subtle, but it's there. The cumulative damage. One blast might be survivable. But this is starting to feel like slow-motion roulette. Afterward, they march you forward again, toward ground zero. This time, the crater is still warm. Literally. You can feel the heat radiating from the ground, even through your boots. The air smells scorched, like ozone, melted rubber, and something else you can't place, something sharp and chemical that clings to your tongue. And then you see it, the crater, jagged, black. It's not just a hole in the desert, it's a wound. You're walking through a gaping mouth that swallowed a bomb and spat out silence. There's debris everywhere, twisted metal, shattered mannequins, hunks of scorched concrete. And here's the worst part. You're not supposed to just observe. You're ordered to go in. You walk into the crater. You hear boots crunching behind you. You look down at your hands, now dusted in fine gray ash. You don't know if it's dirt or fallout. You try not to think about it. There's a camera team following you. They're filming everything. Your march, your inspection, your blank expressions. It's for training, they say, for posterity, for national defense education. You try to act calm. Normal. You pick up a piece of melted steel. It's still warm. You drop it. You notice a nearby cactus half charred. The other half bizarrely untouched. Nature didn't get the memo about controlled tests. Historians still argue whether the military truly understood what they were doing to the troops they deployed into these zones. Some claim precautions were taken. Others point to internal memos where higher-ups dismiss radiation exposure as minimal and manageable. One handwritten note even called it a non-issue compared to combat hazards. You call it what it is, a slow-cooked lie. Later that day, you hear rumors. A guy from another unit collapsed. Another's coughing up blood. Medics shrug it off. Probably heat stroke. You're told to hydrate and move on. But you don't feel okay. Your teeth feel loose. Your skin itches. Your muscles twitch at night. You write a letter home and don't mention any of this. What would you even say? Hi, Mom. Today we walked into a radioactive crater, and I think my DNA is making a break for it. That won't fly. So you write about the sunsets instead. You talk about the desert stars. You say the food's not bad, the guys are good, and you're learning a lot. You're not entirely lying. You are learning. You're learning how to keep walking when every cell in your body screams no. You're learning how easily a government can downplay danger when no one's watching. You're learning that history books may not remember your name, but your cells probably will. That night, there's a campfire. Someone has a guitar. You sit in a folding chair, staring up at the stars. Someone passes around a bottle of something that tastes like cleaning fluid. You take a swig, and for just a second, you forget about the crater. You forget about the cloud. You forget about the way your fingertips have started tingling again. But then someone cracks a joke. You think this stuff will make our kids glow in the dark? Everyone laughs, too hard, too long. You laugh too. And you keep laughing until your chest hurts, because the alternative is terrifying. And in the dark, you start to wonder, if they're willing to do this to their own soldiers, what else are they willing to do? You get up the next morning and something's off. You can't quite name it. Your coffee tastes like copper. Maybe. Or the inside of a coin. Your joints ache a little more than they should, but no one else is talking about it, so neither do you. Today's mission sounds simple. March back toward Ground Zero and observe the environment. That's how it's phrased. Like you're going bird-watching and not walking into the nuclear heart of yesterday's detonation. You pass what's left of a mock tank, melted halfway to slag. Its rubber treads have fused with the desert floor. A few feet away, a tree, well, it was a tree, now stands leafless and blackened, bark blistered like old paint, still standing. Somehow, like it's daring the wind to knock it over. And then there are the mannequins. You knew they were there, of course. Civilian casualty simulation units, the official term, but standing in the wreckage and seeing them up close, it hits different. They're arranged in little scenes, a family at breakfast, a man reading a newspaper, a child in bed, all of them scorched, twisted, frozen in melted mock domesticity. You walk past what used to be a grocery shelf, rows of canned peaches now bloated and split, labels half vaporized. One can has exploded from the heat, its jagged metal edge slicing the fake toddler mannequin next to it. No one mentions that. A guy from your unit turns away, muttering, "I can't." But the officer leading the tour insists you keep going. "This is important data," he says, clipboard in hand. Important to who, you wonder. You begin to suspect you're not being trained. You're being measured. The whole place feels staged, not just destroyed, but arranged. As if the destruction were just another laboratory condition. The fake curtains are still half hanging. Some of the mannequins are even wearing little shoes. One has a fake dog at its side, melted into a puddle of plastic. You pause at a bunker built into the edge of the test village. A soldier inside waves you in. "Want to see the cameras?" he says. You nod and duck under the low entrance. Inside, it's all wires and hums. Rows of ancient-looking monitors line the walls, crackling with static and flickering black and white footage. You see your own unit, you, from earlier that day, walking like ants through ash. The man rewinds and replays the footage of the explosion. The mushroom cloud blooms in perfect silence, like a flower unfolding at light speed. "Beautiful, huh?" he says. You don't answer. Later, back at camp, someone hands out pamphlets again. This one is titled Atomic Warfare and the Soldier, Facts You Should Know. It has cheery clip art, even a cartoon mascot, Atom Andy, wearing goggles and saluting. He looks like the love child of a war crime and a cereal box. You read it anyway. It assures you that low-level radiation is nothing to fear. It compares your exposure to sunbathing on a summer afternoon. It says any side effects, if they occur, will be minor and temporary. You want to scream? Historians still argue whether these handouts were sincere attempts to reassure troops or calculated efforts to minimize dissent. Either way, you're holding what amounts to a comic book about dying slowly. Later, there's a lecture. A colonel with perfect teeth and a voice like a car commercial tells your unit about Operation Doorstep, one of the civilian exposure studies conducted alongside your military ones. They detonated a bomb near a mock suburb, just like the one you saw. Inside were appliances, mannequins, furniture, all placed just so. Some were vaporized, others were only lightly toasted. That's resilience, the colonel says, tapping the photo of a toaster still standing beside a collapsed wall. You stare, not at the toaster, but at the idea that this, somehow, is the point. It's not about people. It's about objects, measurements, optics. And you're just a living variable. That night, a friend of yours, Bennett, starts coughing hard. You both blame the dust at first. But then he sits up and pulls up his shirt. There's a rash blooming across his ribs, red, angry, and strange. You tell him to go to the med tent. He hesitates. "What's the point?" he says. "They'll just say I caught it from the chow line." You don't argue. You just hand him a canteen and sit beside him in the dark. The stars are unusually bright tonight. Or maybe your eyes are just overly sensitive now. You think about that flash again. The one from the blast. The one that left spots on your vision and something sharp in your throat. And suddenly you wonder if the test wasn't to see how you'd perform in battle. Maybe it was to see how long you'd last after exposure. You try not to spiral. So you do what you've been trained to do. You pack your kit, clean your gear, prep for the next simulation. The one where they say you'll crawl through trenches and engage with enemy mock-ups after the next bomb drops. Of course, because clearly, the real lesson isn't about surviving a nuclear war, it's about normalizing it. Making it routine, acceptable, predictable. You lie down in your bunk and close your eyes. The light from that last blast still lingers behind your eyelids. The world goes white, then black. You dream of mannequins smiling in the dark. They tell you it's safe. Again, you're not even surprised anymore. You wake up, drink something vaguely resembling coffee, and walk out into the desert like it's another Tuesday. Your boots crunch over sand that's maybe just sand, or maybe it's lightly seasoned with particles you can't see, can't smell, but that will stick in your lungs for decades. Today's test is supposed to be low yield, as if the word low somehow makes it less absurd. Still a nuclear bomb, still dropped in your vicinity, still something your great-grandchildren might hear about from their oncologist. You march with your unit to a new set of trenches. These ones are closer to the blast site than before. You ask an officer if that's intentional. He grins like you've asked the punchline to a joke. It's the only way to collect better data. Then he adjusts his sunglasses and walks away. Right. You're starting to realize there's a pattern. Every test is slightly more extreme than the last. You're closer. The yield is higher. The time between exposure and follow-up shorter. Its escalation disguised as procedure. This morning's detonation is nicknamed Shot Simon. You try not to read into the names anymore. Too many are oddly casual, like nicknames for dogs or jazz musicians. But each one feels like a line in your medical records you'll never get to see. The detonation comes right on schedule. You cover your eyes, you brace, you wait. Boom! Flash, roar. Same show, same consequences. But this time, the blast knocks over a communications tower 2 miles from ground zero. You hear someone yell, "Holy!" before they cut themselves off. A lieutenant is thrown to the ground. Dust storms up so violently it stings through your jacket. Someone vomits. Someone else laughs like he's lost his mind. You're pulled out of the trench half blind, ears ringing. Your boots sink into soft sand as you're herded forward. Yes, forward, toward the place where the bomb just went off. It's the new routine now. They bomb it. You march in. Like you're testing out an amusement park ride, not the aftermath of an apocalyptic weapon. You pass rows of vehicles positioned in tidy lines, all of them partially melted or blasted askew, jeeps, tanks, even a few school buses. That last one gets to you. It's part of a civilian impact study, they said, to measure how public transportation might fare in a nuclear war. Because, of course, the first thing on everyone's mind during nuclear annihilation is the school bus schedule. Historians still argue whether this kind of testing was designed more for propaganda than science. There's evidence the U.S. wanted to show the world, especially the Soviets, that America could fight and win on a nuclear battlefield, that its troops could not only survive but keep marching, smiling, saluting, even if they were glowing a little. You reach ground zero again. This one feels different. The crater is deeper, wider. Something about it buzzes in your teeth, like a tuning fork pressed to your molars. Your Geiger counter ticks faster. A guy behind you switches his off. "Too noisy," he says. You can't stop looking at the crater's edge. Black sand, melted rocks, A lizard skeleton, perfectly crisped like it wandered into a microwave with bad timing. You kneel, scoop up a handful of ash. It's warm, sticky. You wonder if it'll still be there in 100 years. Maybe someone will bottle it, sell it online, authentic Fallout ash, 1953 vintage. You laugh, softly, bitterly. Then you cough, a dry, hacking sound that surprises even you. You wipe your mouth. There's blood, just a thread of it. But still, enough to raise alarm bells that no one's ringing. You report it to a medic. He scribbles it down and gives you salt tablets. Later that afternoon, you're debriefed again. This time in a mobile tent that smells like radiator fluid and nervous sweat. A major clicks through slides showing crater measurements, blast radii, and one peculiar chart measuring soldier behavior in proximity to detonation. You're on the chart. Not by name, but your trench group is there. Your movement, your proximity, your reaction time. You realize, then, that you're part of an experiment you didn't sign up for. One you can't leave. Back at the barracks, someone's mail arrives late. A letter from a wife, another from a mother. One guy reads a postcard out loud. "Hope you're staying cool out there. We miss you." Everyone chuckles. The desert is 102 degrees in the shade. And the shade is a myth. The night feels long, too quiet. Your bunkmate, Davis, whispers into the dark. "What happens if we start dropping these in cities again?" You pause, then answer truthfully. "Nothing survives." He doesn't respond. "Neither do you, because part of you knows that what you're doing here isn't about defense. It's not even about deterrence anymore. It's about normalization, conditioning, getting used to the bomb, like it's just another bullet, just louder. There's a phrase you heard once, in training. Acceptable casualties. You're starting to wonder if that's what you are. A few nights later, another man collapses during a training run. He's taken away on a stretcher, his face pale, lips cracked, and arms twitching. The rumor mill starts up again. Radiation sickness, dehydration, nerve damage. The medics say it's heat exhaustion. Same line, every time. You sit on a metal bench, sipping lukewarm water from a canteen that tastes faintly of rust. You look down at your hands. They're shaking again. And you wonder, in a strange, calm sort of way, how many bombs does it take before anyone cares? They brief you again the next morning, all smiles and buzzwords. The phrase of the day is controlled exposure. That's what they're calling it now. You're part of a study, a noble effort to understand atomic warfare from the inside out. But you know better. You've seen the paperwork. At least, the parts they let you see. You've seen the maps marked with radiation levels in cheerful color codes. The green zones mean safe, supposedly. But those same zones are where Private Langley lost his eyebrows and a chunk of his hearing last week. Mild side effects, the sergeant said. Today, you're told to gear up for another exercise. Not just another bomb test. This one includes troop movement through recently detonated terrain. It's a walk in the ash, a jog through the remains of artificial towns and fused dirt. You're given gloves, a mask that wouldn't stop a sneeze, and a Geiger counter that won't shut up. You're told to turn it off once the numbers go too high. It's just background noise, they assure you. Sure, background noise that makes your gums ache and your bones feel like they're pulsing. You board a truck headed to the edge of the test zone. A corporal hands out a new booklet titled Preparedness is Patriotism. You flip it open. More cartoons? A housewife smiling while dusting radioactive soot off a windowsill. A child under a desk with a grin. It's like if Leave It to Beaver met Chernobyl and got syndicated. You arrive at what was once a fake town. Half the buildings are scorched skeletons. The others stand eerily untouched, like survivors refusing to blink. This place was built not to last, but to fail in interesting ways. There's a church, a diner, a post office, all real enough to fool a passing glance, but empty inside. The buildings were constructed purely to be destroyed. There were even cameras inside, capturing every shiver of drywall, every shattered window. You walk into the remains of a grocery store. The shelves are bent, the boxes charred, the air still faintly metallic. A mannequin lies in the freezer aisle, its face half melted. Someone's added sunglasses to it. You laugh because the alternative is screaming. Historians still argue whether the soldiers were told the full truth about what they were walking through. Official records claim all safety measures were followed, yet dozens of declassified documents mention incidental exposure, unforeseen wind shifts, and acceptable health compromises. You step into the remains of a living room. There's a couch, burned to its springs, a coffee table, warped like a funhouse mirror, a toy train, blackened and cracked. You pick it up and turn it over. Still warm. Someone behind you mutters, "Feels like a war zone." But this wasn't war. This was theater. You move through the ruins like a ghost, boots silent on ash, Geiger counter hissing like a snake at your hip. Your fellow soldiers, some of them younger than you, joke about superpowers, glowing in the dark, radioactive pee. You play along, but inside you're doing math. Time of exposure, number of tests, proximity to blast, dosage. You've become your own science experiment. Later, back at base, you hear a rumor. One of the test scientists has checked into a hospital with severe burns. Not from the blast. He wasn't even there. But he handled a contaminated piece of debris without gloves. A tiny slip. A massive consequence. You sit in the mess hall, pushing food around your tray. It's spaghetti night. The sauce looks oddly orange. No one's hungry. You hear coughing. Not just one person, several. Dry, raspy, like sandpaper dragged across lungs. No one talks about it. The next day, a chaplain comes by, offering a sermon on duty and sacrifice. He quotes scripture, something about walking through the valley of the shadow. You listen with half an ear. The shadow he's talking about? It has a half-life of 24,000 years. After the service, you corner a scientist, one of the men in white coats who hover around every detonation like buzzards in lab goggles. You ask him, point blank, what the long-term effects of repeated exposure might be. He hesitates, adjusts his glasses, says, "The data's still inconclusive." You nod, not because you believe him, but because you're tired. And because, of course, the data's inconclusive, you're still the data. That evening, the sun sets in a blaze of gold and crimson. It's beautiful, so much so that for a second, you forget. Then you realize, that color? That might not be the sky, it might be the dust. You take out your notebook. You've been keeping one since the first test. Sketches, observations, the occasional angry haiku. You flip back to the first page. It reads, "First blast. Too bright to be real. The world blinked. I didn't. Still waiting to exhale." You close the book. You wonder if anyone will read it after you're gone. You wonder if anyone will care. The coughing gets worse. It starts as a tickle. Dry throats, chapped lips. Then the noses bleed. You begin to see tissues stained red in trash bins, men wiping their sleeves without even noticing. It's not flu season. It's something else. One soldier collapses in the latrine. Another faints on parade. The medics say it's dehydration, maybe nerves. But you've seen radiation charts. You've studied the training slides. This isn't nerves. This is something boiling inside. The officers still smile during morning briefings. Still talk of valor, of strategic necessity. But even they keep their gloves on now, and their smiles don't reach their eyes. A captain from Alabama starts wearing a lead vest under his uniform. You ask if that even works. He says he doesn't care. Anything to feel like he's fighting back. Meanwhile, the tests continue. Bigger blasts now, taller mushroom clouds, the kind you can see from 50 miles out. They assign names to the bombs. Abel, Baker, Charlie, as if they were pets, not harbingers. You wonder who gets to name them. You wonder if they know the irony. You're ordered to stand on a hill with 30 others during one particular detonation. A proximity study, they call it. The blast is supposed to go off 2 miles away. You're given goggles. You're told to turn away at the flash. You're told to keep your mouth open so your eardrums don't burst. The countdown begins. 10, 9, you swallow. 8, your fingers twitch. 7, someone mutters a prayer. 6, 5, 4, you squeeze your eyes shut. 3, 2, 1, the world becomes light. Not like sunlight, not even like a fire. It's light that feels solid, like a slab dropped on your chest. Your goggles melt at the edges. Your skin screams, even though you're wearing layers. For a moment, there's no sound, just the roar behind your ribs. Then the thunder hits. The ground trembles like a drumhead. Your knees give out. The shockwave barrels past, pulling sand and sweat from your face. You feel something warm trickle from your ear. You taste blood. When it's over, the officers cheer. Some of the younger men shout, trying to laugh, but you just sit there, blinking. Something inside you is cracked. Back at camp, they give you milk and tell you to rest. Helps flush out the isotopes, they say. No one knows if that's true, but they drink it anyway. Gallons of it. Some soldiers begin hoarding it in their bunks, convinced it's the only thing keeping them alive. You write another note in your journal. Stood before a new god. He wore no face, only fire. Still, we saluted. A week later, they send in cleanup crews to the crater. You're one of them. You walk into a wasteland of molten glass and dust that clings like tar. You see footprints baked into the surface, frozen mid-stride. The air is quiet. Too quiet. Even the birds stay away now. You bend down to collect a soil sample. The Geiger counter jumps into the red. Your gloves start to fray at the fingertips. You think of your hands. You think of your future children, if you'll even have any. The scientist walking with you coughs into his elbow. Blood dots his sleeve. He doesn't notice. You do. They bring in dogs now, real ones, to test biological responses. No one asks questions. The dogs whimper, refuse to walk toward the center. Some throw up. A few simply lie down and go quiet. You stare at one, a black mutt with soft ears and scared eyes. It stares back. It knows. And in that moment, you realize everything knows. The earth, the air, the water. You're just the last ones pretending not to. Later that night, in the quiet before lights out, someone plays a record on an old phonograph. It crackles through static. Patsy Cline, maybe. The melody drifts through the barracks, thin as breath. You lie on your cot, staring at the ceiling, the dust in the air catching the moonlight like stars. Your bones ache. Your teeth hurt. Your hairline has started to recede. You're 24 years old. You close your eyes and dream of snow that never melts. You wake up with your mouth tasting of metal. It's not blood. Not exactly. It's a dry, tinny bitterness that clings to the tongue. You drink from your canteen, but the water only tastes like rust. In the mirror, your gums are pale, and your eyes, once clear, have turned the color of old smoke. The doctor on base tells you it's stress, but you know better. The base hospital has grown crowded. Beds fill with men who can't explain their fevers, their bone pain, the strange burns that bloom across their backs like ivy. Some are 20, some are 50, some are officers, some are janitors. All of them have the same hollow look now, like something inside has already gone missing. You help a sergeant to the infirmary one evening. He keeps whispering numbers. 25 rads. No, 30. Maybe more. As if repeating them might undo the dose. He smells like iodine and fear. He doesn't make it through the night. That week, the trees nearest the testing range begin to die, not all at once, but slowly, quietly. Their leaves curl at the edges like paper over a candle. The birds vanish. The rabbits are found lying on their sides in the sand, eyes open and glassy. They send for photographers, not reporters, just men with cameras. To take scientific documentation, you're assigned to help them. You carry cases of film, lenses, tripods. You start seeing everything through glass. Click, a fox with no fur. Click, a crow that forgot how to fly. Click, the bones of a deer, bleached too fast by something you can't name. When you look at the photos later, nothing looks real. Even the sky seems off, too white, too clean, like the negatives were overexposed, or the sun had grown teeth. One of the photographers cracks a joke. If heaven had a basement, I think we found it. No one laughs. A week later, your fingernails start to loosen. You wrap them in gauze and hide your hands in gloves. You tell the others it's just burns from a hot canister. They nod. They lie too. One man wears a scarf every day, even though it's 90 degrees out. You see the raw ring on his neck when the wind lifts the cloth. They say it's only temporary, that the tests are almost over. But each new bomb is bigger, brighter, angrier, and each time, you feel less human when it's done. The chaplain begins holding evening services. Not mandatory, but more people come now. He doesn't talk about sin or salvation anymore. Instead, he reads from Ecclesiastes, voice shaking. For in much wisdom is much grief, and he that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow. You understand now. It's not just the radiation, it's the knowing. Knowing what you've helped create, what you've unleashed. One night, you dream of the mushroom cloud again, but this time, it's silent. It rises not from a desert, but from a city. A skyline you half recognize. You try to scream in the dream, but your jaw won't open. Your teeth fall out like gravel. You wake up gasping, fingers curled into claws around your blanket. Across the room, your bunkmate is crying in his sleep. You don't wake him. The next morning, someone finds a rat in the mess tent. Except it's not a rat anymore. Its eyes glow faintly. Its tail is split. A group of soldiers crowd around it in silence. No jokes this time. One man crushes it with his boot. Nobody says a word. By the end of the month, the brass announces a temporary halt to testing. Too much wind, they say. Bad visibility. Dust storms. But you know what it really is? They're scared too now. You overhear a colonel snapping at a visiting general. We can't keep hiding the burns. The goddamn skin's falling off in sheets. You write another note in your journal. We used to worship the sun. Now we try to become it, and we wonder why we burn. That night, the lights flicker. A transformer overloaded from the sand. You step outside, and for the first time in weeks, you see the stars again. Real stars, not the ones made by man. And for just a moment, in the cold desert air, you feel small again. Not sick, not scarred, just a speck beneath the sky. And it feels peaceful until you remember what's coming next. You receive transfer papers. No explanation, just an order. You're to report to a new site in the Pacific, an island you've never heard of. The name sounds like a cough. Bikini. You ask around, and no one else knows much about it either. Just that it's hot, remote, and perfect for observation. You don't argue. Nobody does anymore. You pack your things, uniforms, boots, iodine tablets, and board a plane. The flight takes forever. When you land, the air smells different, heavy, salty, the kind of humidity that clings to your bones. The island is green and lush and very, very quiet. Too quiet. The locals have been evacuated for their safety. They say their homes still stand, but they're empty now. Beds neatly made, dishes on the shelves, sandals left on doorsteps like their owners might be back any minute. But they won't. You walk the beach at dusk. The sand is soft, the ocean warm. It should feel like paradise, but the towers they're building say otherwise. Dozens of metal skeletons rise from the lagoon, each one topped with measuring devices, cameras, weather balloons. Warships are being towed into position, some of them old and rusted, others still bristling with guns and crew dummies. You ask why they need so many. A technician shrugs. Want to see what happens to a fleet? You begin to dream of oceans that glow in the dark. The nights are filled with the sound of generators, hammering, quiet weeping from someone's tent. You take photographs again. Not of animals this time. There aren't any. But of blueprints, diagrams, cables thick as tree trunks. You watch the scientists laugh at lunch. You stop eating with them. Then comes the morning of the test. Everyone is awake before sunrise. The sky is clear, too clear, like it's holding its breath. You're given goggles, thick and black, and told to lie flat behind a blast wall. A man near you cracks a joke about suntan lotion. No one laughs. You count down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The ocean disappears. Then the world turns white. Not just bright, pure like the page before the first word, like birth or death. You feel it in your spine, in your teeth, in the pit of your stomach. Your skin prickles like it's being rewritten. You clamp your eyes shut, but the light pours through anyway. It lives behind your eyelids. Then comes the sound, a crack, then a roar, then a pressure wave that rattles your ribs. Sand pelts your face. Palm trees whip sideways. Somewhere far off, metal screams. When it's over, you raise your head. Where once there was ocean, there is now a pillar of fire and steam climbing into the heavens, vast and arrogant and alive. The mushroom cloud blossoms, pink, then gray, then dirty yellow, its stem stretching from the boiling sea. You feel awe, and then shame. Some cheer, some cry. You stare. The lagoon is gone. In its place is a wound. Ships have vanished. Others burn silently. The water hisses as if it's angry. The cloud begins to drift, lazily, like a god stretching after sleep. They call it a success. You write in your journal, "It was not a bomb, it was a question. And now we wait for the answer." That night, the wind changes. It brings the ash with it. Soft, almost pretty, like snow. Until you remember what's in it. You pull your blanket tighter. You tell yourself it'll settle, that the sea will cool, that the world might forget. But you know better. You were there when we taught the sky how to burn. You were there when we turned paradise into proof. And now, even the stars look different. Like they know what we've done. Years pass. You come home eventually, though home is a funny word now. It looks the same. More or less. The corner store still sells licorice. The postman still whistles. The neighbor's dog still barks at nothing. But you don't fit anymore. Your skin itches at night. Your teeth hurt. Sometimes, your hair comes out in small, polite handfuls. You visit doctors. They ask about your diet, your stress. One of them suggests it's just aging. You smile, nod, and say nothing. You don't talk about the dust, or the flashes, or the noise that still lives behind your ears. You don't tell them about the feeling, that cold sensation in your bones that something inside you has been moved out of place, permanently. You see others like you, men from the trenches, men from the islands, men who were told it was safe. They gather in small circles at VFW halls, their voices quiet. They bring folders filled with letters, photos, half-complete medical charts. They compare scars, symptoms, lost years. Some of them shake now. Others don't remember their own addresses. A few are missing pieces. The government sends pamphlets. It takes 40 years for someone to even say the words atomic veteran. It takes longer for anyone to mean them. You apply for benefits. They tell you they can't find your file. You apply again and again. Eventually, you stop. You begin to write instead. You write about the desert, about the light, about the feeling that the world cracked open in front of you and something terrible crawled out. You write because someone has to remember. You write because the dust still glows. You write because history, left alone, turns polite. And what happened out there was never polite. It was brutal, and bright, and deliberate. Eventually, they build memorials. Quiet little ones, bronze plaques, maybe a statue, tucked away behind a courthouse or near a base no one uses anymore. Tourists walk by, read the inscription, nod, move on. But sometimes a child stops, asks their grandfather, "What's an atomic veteran?" And maybe, just maybe, the answer isn't silence. Maybe it's you, sitting in the sun. Older now, a blanket on your knees and the wind in your thinning hair. Maybe you tell the story, all of it. The trenches, the goggles, the ash, the men who vanished into the light. And when the child asks, why would they do that to you? You don't say, for science or for safety. You just look at the sky, still blue, still high, still hiding its scars. And you say, because we let them. Then you close your eyes, and finally, you sleep.